Welcome to the first ever episode of what I'm going to call S&M, Sports and Movies. Or if I'm talking about movies, I may call it S&M for Scary Movies. Or when I'm talking about sports, I might call it S&M for Seminoles because I'm a huge Florida State fan. Can't really see that sign behind me, but I am and always have been. I have had multiple podcasts that you can find on all of the streaming apps. But I've decided to combine them because it's really hard to keep up with all of them. And honestly, I haven't really been that on the ball with them, except for the one I did for my work. I was very on the ball with that, did weekly episodes for that. But I have one called Movie Night Frights that talks about scary movies. And then I have one that I have called Climbing, an FSU podcast, which was a great name a few years ago, but it almost makes us Florida State Seminole fans sick to our stomach to say climbing these days. So instead, I'm just going to combine them both. I'm going to call it S&M, Sports and Movies. And I've always just done audio. I've never done video. I am running a test today using an app called OSB to see if I can do both and extract the audio and still make an audio podcast, but also put this on YouTube. But today we're talking about sports, and that's how I'm going to differentiate the two, because let's be real, how many people are really going to watch this? Not many is my guess. It's probably just going to be me talking and maybe occasionally some friends. But today we're going to talk about sports because today is Thursday and tonight is the college football playoff. And you're going to have to forgive my background. I didn't wake up this morning planning on doing this. I just finished doing some work and I was like, you know what? I'm sitting still. I'm here. Let's knock it out. And so if I get good at this and do it for a long time, I'm sure I will perfect what you are staring at. But today you get to stare at me. You get to stare at an old picture of my sons when they were young. They're not that young anymore. You can see a homemade Florida State thing behind me, and you can see a white wall because this is where I do a lot of my remote work. But today, the reason we're doing a sports podcast today is because it is Thursday, January 8th. It's my mom's birthday. Tell her happy birthday. And tonight is the first game in the college football playoff. And we have Ole Miss and Miami playing tonight, and we got Indiana and Oregon playing tomorrow night. And I just thought, what a good day to talk about how I feel about those games and the state of college football, which mostly means talking about the transfer portal, which is absolutely out of control, but it is what it is. Like, so many people are upset about it. And I have always been one that I try not to get mad about things that I have no control over. And boys, we got no control over the transfer portal. Like, one of these days I'll get into the story, but I'm an old Texas high school football coach. I'm a retired superintendent. Was the son of a Texas high school football coach that's in the Hall of Fame in Texas. I played quarterback at Sweetwater High School in the early 90s. I have been a college football junkie since I can remember. I've been a Florida State fan since 1985. 12 years old, we'll get into that story someday. It happened one night and I never went back. Before I got robbed twice in a week. That was many years ago. But I used to have every Florida State game that was broadcast on TV on VHS, like categorized by year. Now they're sitting in somebody's home, or they're destroyed, or they're in a pawn shop. But they're not in my house anymore. But if they're on, I'm in. And I will be a fan till the bitter end. It doesn't matter if they're good or bad. I live in Texas. I live in La Mesa, Texas, which is near Lubbock, which is Texas Tech. But I live in cowboy country, Dallas cowboy country. And I make fun of them all the time because I really don't have an NFL team. I watch the NFL, but I joke with them and tell them that my favorite team is whoever's playing the Dallas Cowboys, just for fun. But it's been so long since they were good. But the true Dallas Cowboy fans, which I know some true Dallas Cowboy fans, I'm thinking, of three of them. As I talk, I'm thinking of you, Jacob Hernandez. And I'm thinking of you, Mr. Darrington. And I'm thinking of you, Eddie Rocha. Like, y'all are true Cowboy fans, whether they're good, whether they're bad. Like, I saw Darrington at the grocery store on Sunday before a meaningless game with the Giants, decked out, everything on, getting the stuff he was going to cook. And I respect that because that's who I am as a Florida State Seminole fan. And it's easy to be a fan when you're winning the championships, when you're finishing top 4 for 14 straight years, when you're in contention every year. But that's not the life we've lived for a while now. And I'm still a fan. And I watch every game. And I wake up the next day mad or frustrated. And I have a ton of Florida State Seminole podcasts that I listen to. And I sense their disgust and anger. But when they tee it up the next week, I'm still a fan. And I'm still watching. And I will be a fan till the day I die. So, yes, I'm a Florida State fan, but I'm a college football fan as well. And so today we're not going to talk about Florida State outside of, we can kind of hit on the portal a little bit, but we're going to talk about college football in general. And we're going to talk about the games tonight. But let's start with the games tonight. Ole Miss and Oregon. Ole Miss and Miami. Those of us that are true Florida State fans have a really hard time saying the words Miami and college football playoff semifinal. So forgive me. Even though I'm still mad at Oregon for 2014, I guess. If I'm off on my years, I apologize. Dalvin Cook couldn't hang on to the ball, which is crazy because he's like one of the best running backs ever. I'm not as mad as Oregon as I just can't pull for Miami. My dad was asking me, who do you want to win it all? And really my answer is any of them but Miami. But that's who plays tonight. And Miami's favored, I believe, unless I read that wrong. And, Miami is that pick that when the college football playoff committee was trying to decide who to put in the playoffs, and it was Miami or Notre Dame, which I think was the wrong conversation to have, but that's a podcast for another day. I don't think it should have been Miami or Notre Dame. I think Miami and Notre Dame both should have been in over Alabama. I think that conversation was the wrong conversation to be had. But my whole rant on the SEC and all of that can come at another time. And if I yawn a little bit, I apologize. I'm old and tired today. But I remember telling my father that if Miami gets in, I wouldn't want to play them. I think that they have a lot of talent. I'm not the biggest Carson Beck fan. I do think that Malachi Tony is the real deal. I think Fletcher's good. I think their defense is good. I think their defensive coordinator is good. But I thought they had the talent to play with anybody. And I think that that's kind of proven to be accurate. Now, Ole Miss, how much effect on the players does all this coaching mess business have? I don't really think a lot in this day and age. I think it would have had a bigger effect a decade ago, but the amount that college football has become transactional, I don't really think that. I think they are able to tune it out. Now, do I think Lane Kiffin, like I was watching First Take this morning, and they were, Jimbo Fisher went on his rant yesterday about Lane Kiffin. And I don't really know how I feel about all that. The whole deal is he let all of his coaches coach round one, and now he's only letting 2 of them coach round 2. And, the debate on First Take became, well, was that the plan from the very beginning? And it may have been. And if it was, they're saying he should have let everybody know. I mean, who really knows? Those coaches may not want to coach. And, that gets left out because I don't think Lane Kiffin is scared to be the bad guy. Like, I think he welcomes it. So he may have given those coaches a choice, and they may, with as much portaling and visits and all that's going on, maybe they didn't want to coach. I don't think we'll ever know, and I don't think it's really going to matter in the long run because I think we live in a day and age where the football players don't care. When Lane wanted to coach the team, and he made the comment that everybody wanted to coach the team, I did read some things. Like, I don't think they would have been upset if he coached the team, but I don't think it was life or death for those players. So do I think it's going to affect them? Maybe a little. Do I think that it could be handled in a way that it was not even a story at all? Maybe. I don't know. Because as soon as those coaches aren't going back, that's going to leak, that's going to get out. I think the distraction of them talking about that instead of just Ole Miss in the playoff, that would make me a little angrier as a player than just the whole coaching thing. The OC is going to be there. I think the other one is it's either the running backs or receivers coach is going to be there. I would think as long as the systems are in place, as long as if I'm Trinidad Chambliss, is that his name? As long as you are the one that's called my plays all year, and you are going to get those plays into me the same way you've been getting those plays into me all year long, I really don't care. We're too late in the season for there to be a whole lot of anything else. You know, the OC is going to make the adjustments. The OC, you know, again, if this was week 5, it'd be different. Like, they know who they are. And yes, you have to cater some of your stuff, your offenses and your defenses to Miami, but there's really not a lot of big picture changes that are going to happen in the last, possible last week of the season. So I don't think it's going to affect Ole Miss a ton. Now, that was my favorite game of the last round was Ole Miss and Georgia. If Ole Miss and Miami get in the same kind of game, I think it's a coin flip. Who do I want to win? I really don't. If it wasn't Miami, I wouldn't care. I would just want to see a really good game. And honestly, like tomorrow night with Oregon and Indiana, that's what I hope. I hope we see a really good game. I hope we see a really good game tonight. It's a Florida State Seminole. I can't be in favor of Miami winning. I would tell my dad going into the playoffs that the players will keep Miami close, but Cristobal will screw them if it gets close. To his credit, he hasn't yet. He hasn't gotten in the way of their wins yet. That doesn't mean he won't tonight. But I'm going to pick Ole Miss just because there's no world that I can live in as a true Florida State Seminole fan that I can pick Miami. But do I think Miami is going to make a game out of it? I do. I had pulled up over on this other computer what I think the latest line was. I don't bet teams. I'm not going to lie. I do the props, the price picks a little with the players. But it looks like Miami is favored against Ole Miss around 3.5 points. I'd take Ole Miss with that because I don't think either one of them is going to be the other one bad. I don't. So I think it's going to be a fun game. I'm looking forward to it. If Florida State was playing today, I wouldn't be working at all. I'm taking a little break from work to do this. But I am telling you right now, this would be like a national holiday for me. I would have got up. I would have worked out. And I would have started getting ready for the game. So I'm excited for you Hurricane fans to get to experience that because, truth be told, a little shade. Even though it's been a while for us, it's not been as long as it has been for you. Ole Miss, I don't think, has ever got to enjoy this. Indiana, we know, has not ever gotten to enjoy this. Oregon, to an extent. But, man, it's special when the team that you ride or die with is getting to play in these games. So, yeah, I hope y'all are doing what I would be doing, and that's spending my whole day prepping for tonight's game. Honestly, if it was Florida State, I'd probably be there because I have – in my later career, had more opportunity. When I was a head football coach, I never could. You work 7 days a week. When I was a superintendent, I worked 7 days a week, but it was a lot more work that I could do over the phone on the weekends. And so, yeah, I'd probably be there. So we're going to pick Ole Miss tonight. We're going to pull for Ole Miss, but we also aren't going to be mad if it's a really good game and Miami just gets edged out at the end. Tomorrow night, that one, it says Indiana is favored against Oregon. I don't know how you can't pull for Indiana at this point if you're just a college football fan. I was one that honestly, I thought Alabama would play them a little better. I don't feel like that was a slight against Indiana as much as, I mean, you just are used to stories like this coming to an end, right? The fairy tale story, usually at some point you lose. And I just don't know that this Indiana team is gonna. And they might tomorrow. I think Dan Lanning is a great coach. I think the coaching on, I would rank. I don't know the Ole Miss. What is his name? Golden, maybe. I may be wrong. I don't know him that well. I don't love Cristobal. I think the ones tomorrow night are both rock stars when it comes to coaches, and I think they're both going to be winners in college football unless they go to the NFL for a very long time. So I think the coaching is even. I don't see how you can't like Indiana's quarterback. Do I think he's the best Heisman winner that's been through? No, I don't. I think he won a lot of it because of the story. But let me also say, last week in their game, I also think that's the reason. I think his personality is the reason he didn't win MVP and they gave it to the O-line. I was asking myself if that was Nick Saban's Alabama, do we think that they would have been, given the whole hum, oh, he's such a good guy, he won't care type deal? No, that's just because every interview he comes off like the I have 2 sons, not 2 daughters, but he's the guy you want your daughters to bring home, right? He's extraordinarily articulate. It's like he has been staring in the mirror and rehearsing every interview that he could possibly have. So when he talks, I think if he ran for president of the United States as soon as this was over, he'd have a really good chance of getting it because of the way he carries himself. But I also think that as the world does, it kind of craps on people like that sometimes. And that's not fair to say. He just won the Heisman Trophy and he's playing tonight. He's going to be probably the first pick in the NFL draft. But I think it was cool that they gave it to the O-line, but that doesn't happen to people. That would never have happened to Tom Brady. That would have happened to Peyton Manning quicker than it would have happened to Tom Brady. I don't think it would have happened to Peyton Manning either. But back to the game, that is one I don't have a dog in the hunt at all. You always have the teams you yell for when your team's out, when your team's not playing. I mentioned at the beginning of this, I'm in Lamesa, which is right by Lubbock. I did graduate from Texas Tech, but even then, if Florida State was in a big game, I was not going to the Red Raider game. I was watching the Florida State game. My best friend, Durrell Rether, in college still talks about how we would literally be at the entry gate because they would all be trying to talk me into going and watching the Red Raiders, and I would get so close. But if it was a big Florida State game, like Florida State Miami, Florida State Florida, Florida State Clemson, honestly, Florida State anybody, I was like, yeah, I can't do it. I got to go home. But Tech is one of the teams I pull for when Florida State's not playing. And I say all this to say there was a time Oregon was kind of that, because who, as a young kid, who wouldn't enjoy the flashy uniforms and the way that they played and all that? Not really that anymore, but I also don't, I've got nothing against them, But I'm going to pick and I'm going to pull for Indiana because why not? It's Indiana. It's the Indiana Hoosiers. I understand they've been good for 2 years now, but it's still Indiana. Though Indiana's not supposed to be playing in the college football playoff tonight, and they are. So why not? Why not? Let's let the Cinderella story keep on Cinderella-ing, and let's rock and roll. So we're gonna pick Ole Miss tonight, and we're gonna pull for Ole Miss tonight. And we're going to pick Indiana tomorrow. And we're going to pull for Indiana. But if Oregon was to beat them in a close game, I'm going to be all good. Football season's almost over. At this point, I would just rather the games last as long as they can. If they want to go into 53 overtimes, I'm all in. Because when it's over, yes, I watch basketball. Yes, I watch baseball. But football is my It is my vice. It is what I look forward to. I am one of those that, man, I'll watch it on Tuesday, I'll watch it on Thursday, I'll watch it on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'll watch any division of college, and I'll watch NFL. Doesn't matter to me. I just love watching it. And so with it, college, It's in the end. It's in the fourth quarter. We still have the whole NFL playoffs, which I'm looking forward to that too, but we're not going to talk about it any on this. This will mostly be college football. But let's just let the game last as long as it can, and let's just have two great games. And I do think they will. I don't foresee a world where anybody beats anybody bad. And usually when that happens, the officials have a role in it. And, hey, props to the officiating during the not semifinal. I guess would that be the quarterfinal games last week? Solid. Let them play, And I was really scared that we're going to let them play and then, like officials do, make some call that decides the game after you've been letting them just absolutely be physical to death with each other the whole game, and then you're going to call something at the end of the game. But they didn't. And yeah, there was some stuff that could have been called, but I'm going to tell you right now as an ex-coach and as a fan, yes, if my team's playing, I'm going to get passionately upset at a pass interference call that is called or not called. But as just a fan, I would so much rather you just let them play. Be consistent and let them play. And to their credit, they did. So hopefully the officials don't get involved tonight and tomorrow night, and it's just fun college football. So go Ole Miss and then go Indiana, but tomorrow night just go good game. Let's talk portal for a minute, or just college football in general, because it's crazy, And I was mom's birthday. I believe she's 81. And of course, again, I mentioned at the beginning of this, my father, Texas High School Football Hall of Fame, coached for 30 years. So she's been to her share of football games, and she's watched her share of football games. So she knows football, and they all know how much I am Florida State. Obviously, my dad is to the New York Yankees as I am to the Florida State Seminoles. And so the question came up last night at her birthday dinner, if many Florida State guys have gotten the portal, which, I mean, at this point, it's hard to name any Florida State guys that have not gotten in the portal. And I told her, I don't know. I think the count's like 35 or 36. There's been a few get in the portal and come back. Talked about Oral Little going to the NFL and then coming back, and us able to be happy for like the first sentence of that statement that I've decided to not go to the NFL, but then realizing in the second sentence that he's getting into the portal. The Desir twins are in the portal. The Wayne McCoy is in the portal. Randy Pittman. I mean, it never really stops. And, we don't really live in the world where you can get attached to players. I think the last Florida State Seminole I allowed myself to truly get attached to was Trayshawn Ward, who I think was forgotten by the general Florida State fan base way too fast. If you go back and watch him in the Oklahoma game, the last game he played for us before transferring out, and I love me some Trey Benson, but I think, and Trey Benson was really good the next year, but he wasn't as good as he would have been if Trayshawn Ward would have still been there, because those two guys complemented each other perfectly. Anyway, yes, the Jordan Travises, the Jared Verses. I like Patrick Payton until he started showing the immature dramatics. But to say you don't get attached, like as soon as the season starts next year, I will quickly have my favorite players. But we also just got to understand it doesn't mean those favorite players are going to be there next year. And it's really hard to get mad at them. If I was good enough to be a Division I college football player, there's no doubt in my mind that if Florida State would have offered me any kind of scholarship, that would be where I'd be going, because I'm a fan, right? I don't know how many Division I college football players grow up as fans. I'm sure there are teams they like. Like, I threw out Travis Hunter's commitment before the hat throw and all that. I felt like he was a fan of Florida State. But then Deion Sanders steals him, right? And I was mad at Travis Hunter, but that was kind of the beginning of what became the recipe for our signing days, right? We have the great recruit. We have him committed forever, and then at the last minute, he bails on us. But as time has gone on and the transfer portal has become what it was, it just is really hard to get mad at these guys. I get frustrated. But you just don't know what all comes into play with anything. Like, take the Desir twins, take Loane McCoy. Did they get in the portal just so Florida State would have to pay him more money? Or better yet, let's talk about the kid from Washington. And I may not have all my details correct, so forgive me if I don't. But the kid from Washington, if I understand it right, signed a $4 million NIL deal, like on Monday. And I may be exaggerating a little bit, but by like Wednesday, he was like, nah, never mind, I'm out. And now there's this debate, because I think Washington's going to try to hold him to that. But like I've seen people say, do you really want your quarterback not wanting to be there? And the answer to that's no. But can you just continue to allow contracts to not matter? The answer is also no. So I don't know what you do. I think, and to say that NCAA's got to come in and fix it, like those of us who have followed college football, we know how humorous and comical of a statement that is. They're not going to fix anything. I think it'll get reined in, but I don't know what the fix is. I do agree with the calendar. Like, I hear everybody say the calendar fixes everything. I don't think the calendar fixes everything, but the calendar does fix a lot. And the calendar is bad, right? So you do have to get that under control. But with the revenue sharing and the NIL and the collectives, like, it is as wild, it's as illegal Wild West as it could possibly be. Now, I think college football's always been the Wild West. My dad played at SMU for a bit way back in the day, and so he was a big SMU fan. So as a kid, I was a front row seat when they went through the death penalty and all that, to how unfair my father thought that was. And I think it probably was unfair, because I think we're all ignorant if we think SMU was the only one doing that back in the day. But that was the old Wild West. Now it's concealed carry, right? Like, now in Texas, I went to buy a PlayStation. Are we on 5 or 6 at this point? 5, I think. I went to get my sons and myself, not going to lie, PlayStation 5 when it first came out. And I remember going to GameStop in Lubbock on Thanksgiving. It was one of the Black Fridays or around there. And it was when PlayStation 5s were still hard to get. And they were putting them on sale. And they had put that this specific GameStop, because there's 2 or 3 in Lubbock, is going to have them. And so I went and stood in line. I went and stood in line with everybody else. And there was a guy in line, it's the first time I'd ever seen it, wearing a pistol, just plain as day, out on a holster, just like he was a cowboy. And, I mean, I didn't know him. I didn't talk to him. I was about 10th in line. I got my PlayStation 5. He was in front of me. But my guess is he was going to make sure he got that PlayStation 5, and that pistol was, making sure everybody knew he was going to get a PlayStation 5, right? I say that to say, like, the Wild West of college football used to be under the table. It used to be McDonald's bags, right? Brown paper bags of money. Just like, I'm sure that same guy probably went and picked up a PlayStation 2 years ago, and he probably had a gun, but nobody saw it. And now college football is just $5 million to the Cincinnati quarterback to go to Texas Tech, and everybody knows it. Just like the guy went to get his PlayStation 5 decades later, and everybody's going to know he had a gun. So, and I think there are some schools playing by a set of rules that they think they might be held accountable for. And I think other schools are like, how are you going to hold us accountable for this? Like, there's no rule book right now. And let's talk about Texas Tech, because I don't listen to a single Texas Tech podcast. The only general college football podcast I listen to, honestly, is it Josh Pate? Is that his name? And I'm really new into him because I can't stand Paul Feinbaum. And I feel like this guy is kind of starting to punch Feinbaum out and move him out. Pate is kind of SEC, but not quite as much as as Feinbaum was. 1 second. This is bad podcasting, right? Y'all should have been like, edit it out. Stop it. You should have stopped it and then edit it out. I'm just going to tell you, because I'm trying this new program, I don't know how to do that. If it was GarageBand, I would have. But everybody that I listened to in the Florida State, like, they're talked more about Lubbock and Texas Tech in the last year or two than I've ever heard them talk about it. And they're all mad because Texas Tech is buying their team. And you're not wrong. But so is everybody else. And so how are we mad at Texas Tech? Because they have a little more money. Because Cody Campbell, and I mean, I live in the middle of oil country. And those guys make a lot more money than us educators do. And it's just how it is. And, you know, so right now Texas Tech has more money than most people. But why are we mad at them? Like, I wish Florida State was able to spend that much money. And if Florida State was, people would be talking trash about them. But I watched the Tech Bowl game, the playoff game, and I know Baron Morton's father. I think he's one of the best coaches and men I've ever met. I don't know Baron Morton, but I think he's probably a really good guy. He wasn't very good. And if you watched it closely enough, though, he wasn't the only offensive player that wasn't very good. Defense, and that's where I would have been frustrated as a Tech fan, is because the offense was so bad, it overshadowed how good the defense played that day and how little it got talked about, because everybody wanted to talk about the offense. But I watched that game and I knew they're going to go buy them a quarterback. And they did. And I'm happy for them, right? Because, again, everybody's blaming Baron Morton, and I think that's unfair. I played quarterback. Quarterback does a lot. Quarterback doesn't do everything. When they would show the all 22, especially the end zone all 22s, I saw a lot of receivers that were not open and didn't look to me like they were running routes as hard as they normally did. Saw a lot of running backs that were, in my opinion, not running as hard as they had all year long. And all of that adds up to make it really hard to be a good quarterback. But there was no doubt in my mind at the end of that all of the people giving that money to Tech watched that game and thought, let's go get a quarterback. Let's keep that money flowing on the defensive side. Let's go get a quarterback, and we'll win us a playoff game. And I'm not sure they're not right. But why are we mad at them? Because they have more money than everybody else? I mean, I think it would be okay to be mad if they were cheating. If we knew that they were unfairly paying players, but they're not. They're doing the same thing everybody else is doing. They just have, and they don't have more than everybody. Like, I never thought I would become defensive of Texas Tech, because I graduated there, but to say I'm not loyal is not fair. I've never been rich enough to give them alumni money. I do not contribute to their NIL. I have given money to Florida State's NIL. I went there because my sisters were there and my grandparents were there, and I just went. But I have become kind of defensive of Texas Tech because they are talked so poorly about, because they don't have no business being considered among this, even mentioned in the same words as these historic greats. Well, guys, I'm here to tell you, as a Florida State fan, it's been a bit, right? And if we're not careful, Texas Tech's going to have 4 or 5 or 6 years in a place that we can't sniff because of our inadequate structures that are in place. And again, today's not the day to talk about my feelings of Florida State and their structures and where they are, but it ain't pretty. And if we ain't careful, I mean, we're going to come up on a decade of Florida State not being who Florida State used to be and who those of us who are Florida State fans think they should be, and Tech being it every year. And at some point in time, people are going to forget who Florida State was, and they're going to think this is who Tech was. But all year long, Tech, they're only there because of the money. They're only there because of the money. And I'm like, everybody is spending money. Everybody is paying portal players. I I've watched Coach McGuire coach since he was a head football coach at Cedar Hill, and I saw him play in the state championship many times. And I hate to break this to everybody, but he's a good coach. And if you want to know what kind of athletes he had at Cedar Hill, they all went and played at all of your SEC schools. He knows how to coach the really good athletes. And so I would hear them talk about him like he's just some good old boy that doesn't know his business. And I'm here to tell you guys that it's not accurate. And like, I just felt like if I got a bit defensive because they've got him a good coach. He's not the best. He's not Nick Saban. But guys, how many Nick Sabans are there? I'd take him over Mike Norvell. And I ran into a guy that coaches with Mike Norvell, and I accidentally said something about Mike Norvell. And I used to be the biggest Mike Norvell fan, and I do think he's a good guy. He's not doing what needs to be done at Florida State. Joe McGuire's doing what he needs to do at Texas Tech. So why are we throwing him out there and not respecting it? But go back to everybody saying they're just buying their team. Everybody's buying their team. They're just buying it better. And it's kind of like if your girlfriend dumps you for a better looking guy that's got more money, I mean, yeah, you're going to be mad, right? Like, you have a great personality. You treated her really well. You opened the door for her every time y'all went out to the movie theater. But now they got a movie theater in their house. Like, how mad can I really be about that? Right? So I mean, they don't mention Texas Tech without saying they're buying their team, as is every other team in college football. So I do think Texas Tech has been treated a bit unfairly. And how did I get on that rant? All to say, it's a mess. But again, it's hard to be mad at players. I get mad at the Washington kid. Like, don't sign the $4 million contract and then think you can just walk away. Like, that's not real life. The Desir twins, if you're going to get in the portal, don't put the post about how you cannot ever see yourself playing for anyone other than the Florida State Seminoles. Don't do that. You know, Luane McCoy. I mean, he was one of the few that came to bat for Mike Norvell. Then he gets in the portal. But we've got to understand, as personal as we take it as fans, that it ain't that to these guys. These guys, it is now a profession, right? And let's be real. Like, yes, I was an educator for 30 years, and educators are trained to be loyal. But that doesn't mean I worked in the same place for 30 years. I worked in about 8 different districts. And every time I went to a different district, it was either for more money or for a better role. And like, if these players, because college football's turned into a business, if they're leaving for more money or a better role, it's hard to be mad at them. We let coaches do it for years. Yeah, right? We let coaches do it for years. And we would still, like, when Jimbo left, got a little, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was already kind of falling apart, you know, but I still didn't like the way he left. But why did he leave? I can say I probably wouldn't have gone because I'd go be a water boy for Florida State University and be a happy camper. But the amount that he was paid and the resources that he was given at A&M, he was paid more. And for him, he thought it was going to lead to a better future. It didn't, but he can't tell the future. So I say all that to say it is a hard time to be a loyal college football fan. Let me backtrack. Let me say this. It's a hard time to be a loyal college football fan unless you're not a loyal college football fan, because that goes back to what I said at the beginning of this deal. Like, Florida State, I would love, like, I have 2 sons. One, today's January 8th. On January 11th, he turns 15. And the other one's 17. And they love their basketball guys more than football, but they are fully well aware of their father's Florida State fandom, because it's impossible to not be. There's a Florida State pool table sitting right over there. All over my house, Florida State, Florida State. I go to Florida State games. Everything's Florida State. But they don't, I mean, when you think about Jameis, And the last time we were on top, they don't really remember that. They weren't old enough to remember that. They didn't grow up with Peter Warrick, Charlie Ward, Warrick Dunn, the greats. They didn't grow up with that, right? When they wear the Florida State hoodies to school that their father gets them, their friends look at them like, why are you wearing a Florida State hoodie? They're awful, right? And that's what Florida State is in danger of being if they're not careful. But I say all that to say, like, Florida State can be awful, and I'm still going to be a diehard Florida State fan, like, till the day I die. There's a good chance my tombstone will say scalp them or go nose. And I do see a world where they get back on top, but it ain't going to be next year. And some things are going to have to change for them to get to that world. But it ain't changing me as a fan. And it hurts because I didn't want Treshaun Ward to leave and go to Kansas State and then Boston College. But as I was watching that Oklahoma game that day, I knew it was going to happen because all they talked about on Twitter and everywhere else is Trey Benson. And I'd watch those games and be like, Trey Benson's great, but he kind of got to thank Treshaun Ward for a lot of why he's great. And I'm still going to fall in love with players. Deuce, Jordan Travis, Brock Glenn. Man, Brock Glenn never played the way that I wanted him to play. But, like, dude, I ain't mad at him for transferring. He gave Florida State everything he could give. Go be good somewhere else. It kind of, when I do get attached and they go somewhere else, once I get over my initial breakup, I enjoy watching those games and seeing how they're, like, I was always trying to catch up on Tate to see how he was going to do. I didn't care about Luke. I was not attached to Luke. I was attached to Tate. But I'm always attached to the Florida State Seminoles. So it's a hard time to be a college football fan, but it's not an impossible time. And I keep reading posts that say it's the end. College football is never going to be the same. And I'm just here to tell you, bull crap. Because it's going to end. I don't know when the championship game is. I think it's like a week from tonight, maybe. I don't know. And it's going to be over. And I'm going to be depressed, and I'm going to have withdrawals, and I'm going to be sad. But I'm going to be able to get my little fix with the NFL. But then it's going to be over, and I'm going to get real depressed, and I'm going to go into my movie mode, and S&M is going to be more of a movie podcast for a while. But when it rolls back around next year, me and everybody else is going to be glued right back in because it's still one of the greatest sports and things to get involved in that you could possibly have. So it's a mess right now, but it's my mess, and I love it. And I don't like to read, like every now and then I'll open up Twitter to see who else is in the portal, and it makes me mad. But at the end of the day, for me as a fan, somebody is going to be wearing garnet and gold when the season starts next year, and then I'm going to get attached to those guys. And unfortunately, this day and age, you only get attached to them for 12, 13 games, and then they might leave you. But then there's that one. Like, if I'm Ohio State, Jeremiah Smith is on all, like, he's loyal. And I'm sure they are paying. And that's the thing. Like, we all want to put out there that he is loyal to Ohio State, and he is. But I promise you, he ain't there for free. And they are paying him a pretty penny to stay. So I do think we're all going to have our guys that stick around. I just think it's not going to be many. I do think there's changes coming. But right now, guys, it is what it is. We would not get mad at anybody in our family for leaving a job for better pay or a better opportunity. And I do think most of the kids that leave do it for those reasons. I do think some of them have a good opportunity and have a good payday and still kind of flirt with it a little too much. But if that's the climate, if that's the culture, And you know they don't always have people in there. They don't have me in their ear telling them that Florida State is the best place to play. That if you play at Florida State, when you die and you go to heaven, God's going to look at you and he's going to say, thank you for playing for the best team that I put on planet Earth for the game of football. They don't have that in their ear. What they have in their ear are family members and people saying, you can get more. You can get more. So, yeah, I understand being frustrated, but it's a circus. Let's just watch the circus and enjoy it. That's it for today. Thank you for bearing with me if anybody watches this. Go Ole Miss Rebs tonight. One of the people that live in my town, Lamesa, Texas, has a son that goes to Ole Miss, and they got their Ole Miss flag waving in their yard today. And I'm excited. And I'm honestly, I don't like any of you Miami fans, but I'm happy for you today because you get to experience, when your team is playing in the big games, the whole day is a great day. It's almost as fun as Christmas Day. So enjoy it. Let's have 2 great games. Go Ole Miss, go Indiana. Have a fantastic day. This has been the first episode of S&M done with a very amateur background and setup, but maybe we'll get better. Thank you for watching.